Hey guys, what's up? JK with Porn Reboot here. Welcome to the series on the 5 rules of rebooting. Today we're going to be talking about rule number 3, and rule number 3 is ask for help. Now, one of the mistakes that we sometimes make as porn addicts is we try to do this on our own. And I remember early in my recovery process, one of the things that I did was I kept it to myself, and I believed that I could beat this on my own because I didn't want people to think that I was messed up. I just didn't want to identify as an addict. I didn't want to be the guy who sought help. I refused to believe that I had let my behavior with porn get to a point where I needed somebody else's help. Unfortunately, this was one of the things that held me back for a really long time. And it's holding many of you back. In fact, it's not just holding you back with pornography. See, my entire life changed when I sought out help because I realized the power of having mentors. Because the moment an individual who had seen the movie before, he had seen this movie of porn addiction in his own life, and he had seen it to the end and he'd been recovered, once he could tell me what was going to happen in each scene, I was prepared. I knew what was happening. And then I could do that in other aspects of my life, in my business life, in my dating life, in my health. Seeking out help made the process so much quicker and easier. So getting help truly improves your chance to recovery, and there are a few reasons why. Now, the first reason why is that you start to understand and feel that you are not alone. As I've said before, porn addiction thrives in secrecy, and you can sometimes feel like you're alone in this behavior. I'm sure there's some guys out there who struggle with this behavior, but it's probably not as bad as mine. I'm probably one of the few guys that has a problem with porn, online porn. I mean, everybody watches porn, but I watch it too much. I think I'm addicted to it. It's just too much. When you realize that there are literally hundreds and thousands and maybe even millions of men who are struggling with the same problem as you, it puts your problem in a different perspective. It makes you hopeful. You realize, hey, there's actually a chance that there's a solution to this. Many men found me for the first time and they were shocked. They were like, holy crap. There's actually a whole community of men out here who are overcoming this. I'm not alone, right? And then you find a community. And once you find a community and you're no longer in isolation, then that's when the reboot process can truly begin. The second benefit of seeking help is that you learn how to separate yourself from your addict. And when I say your addict, I mean that voice in your head that causes you to rationalize and minimize your behavior. So let's say, for instance, you have never gotten to 30 days without viewing pornography and masturbating, and you just want to get to 30 days. But you notice that every time you get to 3 weeks, you experience very strong urges or blue balls or whatever you want to call it. And then there's a voice in your head that tells you, hey man, listen, you got to 3 weeks. It's just not healthy to kind of hold it in. You know, this isn't good. This is really uncomfortable. Why don't you just masturbate and let it out? And you're like, okay, well, I'm trying to get to 30 days, but I'm trying to get to 30 days without porn and masturbation. So how about I just masturbate? And you masturbate, but then something happens. When you masturbate the first time, you go like, well, screw it. I feel like crap now, right? I feel so much shame. I feel disappointment that I wasn't able to hit 30 days. You've forgotten all about urges and blue balls, right? You're like, I might as well just watch porn and masturbate and just call it a day. And then tomorrow I'll start from the beginning. That entire process of rationalizing and at first minimizing the impact of what you're going to do, all of that starts as a conversation in your head. And if you do not know how to separate that part of you, which I call the addict, that's having that conversation with you, it's very challenging to beat this. Now, the addict is actually you, right? And it helps when you have help, when you have an outside party who can observe you. That person can let you know what is happening. One of the things I believe at Porn Reboot is that you are the expert at yourself. I am not the expert at you. The only thing I'm an expert at is JK. I'm an expert at myself, but you are the expert of you. All I do is give you tools to be able to become great at taking care of yourself. So I give you access to tools, you get access to different systems, which you can use to understand what's happening in your head, which you can use to dialogue with your addict, which you can use to identify rational and irrational behaviors. So that's one of the benefits of seeking help, something that you may not be able to do on your own. Or you might be able to do it, but it's going to take a really long time before you figure it out. The third benefit of seeking help is that you get to learn about how other people have rebooted. Now, there are a lot of men who believe that the only way to reboot their brain was to be in a 12-step group or to go through some religious methodology. And there's nothing wrong with these. It's just that maybe that does not suit their lifestyle or their personality. And the moment you seek help from other people and you become a little bit open-minded, you just realize that, oh my God, there are so many different ways of rebooting. And I've always said this, like, I do believe that the porn reboot system is the best system for the vast majority of men, but it's not the only system. There are a lot of other systems there that lead men successfully to recovery, right? But when you are open-minded and you seek out help and you start seeing that, wow, there are some men who did it through focusing on mindfulness. There are some men who did it and they did very well by being part of a group. There are some men who needed daily accountability from an accountability partner. There are just some men who needed a community that they could be a part of and get out of isolation. There are some men who changing their environments worked out for them. There are some men who working on certain modalities which address their deep trauma. This helped them with their reboot. And you start being able to piece things together and you realize that the reboot process, recovery and rewiring your brain, is not one-dimensional. And there might be something in there which works for you, and that gives you hope. The fourth benefit of seeking help is that you get access to a place or to individuals who are not going to judge you, right? Sometimes it's challenging, I get it. Sometimes you may not want to share certain things in your 12-step group because you're like, yo, this is in my town. Anybody could walk into my business and be a member of that group. There's just a risk of just running into somebody out there who knows about this problem. Maybe you've told your spouse about it and she just doesn't understand it and you feel that there's a lot of judgment. Maybe you've told your buddies, your guy friends, and they just don't take you seriously, or they just say like, you know what, dude, just get over it, right? This isn't that tough. Why are you dealing with this? Just stop doing it. So it really helps when you are part of a community. And this happens when a lot of men get on a phone call with me for the first time and they realize, like, not only has this individual been off pornography for such a long time, not only does this individual have a lot of time and a lot of experience with controlling this behavior, they've spoken to hundreds of men. And so my problem is not that unique, right? You might think that the genre of pornography you watch is strange or weird, but I guarantee you, in a group like the Porn Reboot Intensive or speaking to me, it's not that weird. It is so refreshing for men to show up in the group and then share something about their behavior, and nobody in the group is shaken. Everybody's just like, yep, thanks for sharing that, brother. We appreciate it. Hey, this guy goes like, hey, I dealt with the same problem too. I know a guy who deals with it. When he comes online, he's gonna tell you all about it. And you go like, wow, I thought I was the only one who was dealing with this problem. So it is really refreshing to just be able to open up and talk about it. And when I get on calls with guys for the first time, they go on and on and on, because sometimes it's been years and decades. You could sit with your pastor, if you're a religious person, and go like, oh, but I just don't want that judgment. Or you could sit with a therapist and you're like, well, but you haven't dealt with the addiction yourself. You haven't been an addict. So you don't really get it. So I think you're going to judge me, or you're going to use something from a modality that you're studying and apply it to me. And I don't want to be treated like an addict. I want to speak to somebody who's not going to judge me, who's like, bro, I get it. You're not alone with dealing with that. It's not the end of the world. We can support you, or we can just listen to you. Maybe you just need to talk about it. That's okay too. And the final benefit you get from seeking help is that you finally are able to release all that shame and guilt. And again, that just starts with reaching out, because this problem thrives in secrecy. It thrives in the dark. And the moment you start opening your mouth and going like, hey man, I have a problem. I'm not able to control it. I feel like a fraud. I feel worthless. I have PIED. I'm not able to have sex with my wife. I don't find her attractive. I'm thinking of stepping out on my marriage. My behavior is escalating. I'm starting to watch porn at work. And on and on and on. There's so much shame and guilt. Once you start sharing this, you realize that it feels as if a huge weight is lifted from your shoulders. And the more often that you do this, the more shame and the more guilt that you release. Many men start feeling happy. And they're like, I don't know why I'm happy. I'm still slipping. But I feel so much lighter. And there's so much more hope for my recovery. And that simply comes by reaching out for help. The moment you get help, that shame and guilt just starts dissipating, all right? So that is rule 3 of rebooting, brothers. Seek help. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about the 4th rule of rebooting, and I'll see you then.